to your top 10 decks for August. Post-Justice Hunters for Rogue. Make sure you guys smash the living crap out of that Canine Cyber Dragon button so you guys don't miss out on more Oz. This has been projected to be one of the community's most wanted decks to see actually touching down post-Justice Hunters, because now the Canine package gives you an extra kind of way to interact with the opponent, but it also means that we can Cyber Dragon easier. That's exactly what your mother heard. Okay, sorry. All jokes aside, Canine Cyber Dragon seems like such a cool deck, especially when you can use the Cyber Dark stuff to be able to get you set up and get another thing. Canine stuff protects you from getting hand trapped, and also a Clockwork Knight means whoop. That's the sound of the vacuum cleaner, as Cyber Dragon literally becomes Kirby and sucks up the opponent's entire field. It is such a cool concept that I am here for wanting to say I really want to see what this variant of Canine Good Stuff will be able to do. Now we have Blue Eyes White Dragon. How the mighty have fallen out here. Now, it's not saying that Blue Eyes is a terrible deck. No, you guys misunderstand. It's just, if you are playing Blue Eyes right now, you have to work so hard to overcome the mass gap between the rest of the meta. Now, Blue Eyes can do it, consistently, but the problem becomes when Vanquish Soul decides that they want to start playing on your turn, then you can't really get established. Blue Eyes could notoriously play through 1 to 2 hand traps, but when you're constantly getting punched down on, it is a very hard time for Blue Eyes to establish. As much as I still want Blue Eyes to be a good deck, it still is. It's just, the Primite cards don't really get the value that they used to, especially when Yummies be rotating through that door the minute that you activate one of your drill beams, because, oops, where to go? Unfortunately, you just lost that advantage. Now, Momento still remains on this list as well. Evidently, for Euros and Master Duel, actually, Memento was starting to develop and play Paradise Smasher. Another deck that is relying on dear old Paradise Smasher to put your opponent into a crippling position. Now, we as a community understand that Paradise Smasher as a linchpin in certain decks will, kind of overcome it. Also, Memento still kind of has this thing where if they're able to build a board, they kind of just spiral things out of control. Now, I don't necessarily think that's going to remain the case here. I think that Memento will still be a good rogue deck for the walls that the deck is capable of putting up. It's just, we're now one step further along the power ceiling as, the next thing comes down. So naturally, Memento drops down. Mermail. I hate to say this, I really wanted to put Mermail in the top 10, but I decided against it because looking at Barrier Statue Turbo, because that's all Mermail really is, alright? It's get a couple cards out of your opponent's hand, have your opponent kind of look at you and be a little bit inconvenienced, and just kind of have them go, oh, this is such a terrible matchup at times. Yes, it is a bad matchup for a lot of decks. Obviously, Mermail kind of gets bullied by, Crystron because they're water, but it's a story for another day. Judging with what we're looking at here, Barrier Statue Turbo as a deck, still going first, is still one of the scariest decks in the room. Now, obviously, depending on the interactions, I think you can trigger K9 in this matchup. It's not really a crazy advantage stream, but, the real value comes from Mulcharming them and forcing them to make bad plays. Archmage. For as much as this community has looked at Archmage and said, Archmage is such a terrible deck, there have been so many players out here trying to innovate with this deck. I think the most famous build has got to be the Fiendsmith build, which, once again, you can throw Fiendsmith in anything, man. It's just like you can throw pretty much Mitsurugi into anything at this point, and you're basically going to get some sort of results. That part has not really changed in this format. It's just your advantage stream is still going to be pretty much the same. I just think that people aren't really giving Archmage the time or day. To the people that are innovating this deck, good job. I want to see more beyond, the Runic variant and the Fiendsmith variant. But those have been the two that I have seen come out of the woodwork as probably the two coolest versions. Now, we have Labyrinth. Now that Labyrinth has access to the two Dracotail trap cards, now this deck can actually do some ha-ha funny things. Actually, I gotta give a shout out here to the actual inclusion of the Labyrinth being able to use the Dracotail traps to kind of cycle each other back into that. Because now Labyrinth kind of has this really interesting thing where they can actually draw cards off of their trap cards. Like Jar agreed with an additional effect negating a spell card. But that just means that your opponent can now ash those trap cards, which is not, to be fair, if your opponent didn't ash the Welcome Labyrinth or the Big Welcome, you're probably looking pretty good. But it's just a ha-ha funny interaction that I think actually makes Labyrinth a little bit better. Every normal trap card that we tend to print into the game just helps Labyrinth get one step further along the way. We're actually making some good progress here. I gotta leave Monarchs on the list of Rogue too. No matter how you want to spin things around, man, a Monarch player going first in an LGS, slamming down Domain, slamming down a Monarch, and looking you straight in the eyes and saying, game 2? And they're just like, oh, okay, yeah, sure. That's always going to be the Monarch experience. Now, Mermail does have tools to go second, like Spell Card Soul Exchange. I'm not going to say that you should be main decking Spell Card Soul Exchange, not at all. But I think in terms of your toolboxing kit, having Spell Card Soul Exchange, especially things like the Wicked Avatar and the Wicked Eraser. I know some people don't really like the Wicked Eraser, like, 3 tributes for a board wipe, but you'd be surprised, man. Sometimes calling in the Wicked Gods as a cleanup tool or the ability to stop your opponent from playing the game, i.e., the Wicked Eraser, or excuse me, the Wicked Avatar, does quite work out very, very interestingly. I'm still going to leave Evil Twins on this list. So once again, we come down to the discussion of how good is a Link 1 package into a Link 1? Does it remain consistent across the board? Well, the question becomes, how good is Desiree still going to be post-Vanquishal touching down into the room? I think Yummy just generates too much of an advantage for this deck to keep up with. And I do think that Vanquishal Canine will just toggle out the minute that you target any of their cards. I will say, though, that I think for, once again, the LGS experience here, that this deck remains a very strong contender in that sense. But as you get more and more of the, do I dare say, the very try-hard, very, very disgusting, Yummy, and Vanquishal Canine mains infesting the event, then that's where you're going to have more of your problems. And then, of course, White Forest. I like leaving White Forest on the list of things. I said Light Forest. White Forest, definitely a good White Forest player can make up for the gap in the potential for the way that the meta can sometimes swing down very, very harshly on this deck. But when I have seen this deck go, it is just like Mermail. It ends up just kind of being one of those, all right, well, I stole a game from you. I don't really have enough gas. Kind of clap back and steal another game, which is kind of unfortunate. But I think that we have to still respect the fact that this deck, in its rogue lifespan, is still going to be here for a little while. Whether or not people are going to respect it or not is an entirely other thing to be seen. But I got to give them some credit, people. I think that this deck, I'm a little bit intrigued with it. And then we're leaving Sky Striker on the rogue side of things. I really debated on if Sky Striker should have gone down here or moved up, but I think Sky Striker is the definition of rogue at this point. Drawing multiple cards, finding the toolbox options to board break your opponent, trying to put yourself into a good enough position to overcome anything that the opponent might be trying to swing at you. That's exactly what Sky Striker does. Widow Anchor is a hell of a card. You're just you're going to have a little bit tougher of a time. This deck can grind out Vanquishal. I've seen it. All right, Sky Striker with a well-timed Luminous Gate is about to be GG no re. But what do you guys think about your rogue contenders for Post-Justice Hunters? Please leave a comment down below. Tell me what you guys think, and I'll see your beautiful faces back here in the day, guys. Patrons, thank you.
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.